You know, for a while, and I mean a while as in a long time, Shakespeare's plays were denigrated for not following the rules of, Aristotle's rules for unities of time and following the structure of how drama works. And it's in the 19th century that people returned to his plays. I mean, they didn't, as we've discussed, that AO3, that the 19th century critics, the Romantic critics, they adored Shakespeare. They enjoyed the messiness, the breaking of the rules, the passion, the interaction with nature, all of that. They didn't like the staging of the play. They treated it as a poem, not as a play. But it's precisely Shakespeare's centrality to theater history and AO2 form as a drama. He's doing absolutely new things for me in this play, and central to that are yes, the brutality, but also a language thinking about theater. And here even I think Shakespeare is amazing, because even here, for me, he's even anticipating radio. The idea of the blind man being described what he's seeing as an experience is both tender. It's completely absurd. That's why it speaks to the modern stage of, when Jen talked about King Lear or Endgame. This is the theater of Beckett, AO3. This is the theater of Beckett. This is the theater of ancient Greece. I'm never going to spell this right. Aeschylus, sorry, I don't know how to spell Aeschylus. But, the ancient Greeks, his Oedipus blinds himself off stage. It's Shakespeare that puts it on stage. His Oedipus is guided by his daughter, but she's a servant taking her father around. Here, Gloucester doesn't realize that he's accompanying his son who's playing a role, who's trying to inspire him to believe again, is going to accompany him on a suicide mission, but won't let him commit suicide. And he's losing, and he has to convince him that they're climbing a hill, and his accent is falling away because he's not in the performance as much. And in all this comes a heightened sense language where Edgar has to mobilize all his powers of description to make Gloucester experience this as if it's happening. And then after falling and supposedly dying, he has to explain to him that he was saved and it was a demon that led him on to suicide, and the gods wish him to continue to live. And it's a radical kind of meditation on belief and hope. And it can be tender and beautiful and hopeful, and simultaneously can be quite horrific, because it can show you that belief is nothing more than a kind of little performance, a myth you believe in to give you an ounce of hope. And maybe there'll be enough hope to get him through this, but it won't be enough hope to make everything all right. There is real horror coming up for these characters. And again, the sweetness and intimacy of this scene moves me. But I think the genius of this play is, as with the hope, is the terrible depth and fear underneath at the same time. When shall we come to the top of that same hill? You do climb up it now. Look how we labor. Look how we labor. I mean, look, it's just, I mean, that's just hilarious. I'm going to have to say that. I mean, I don't think he means it as a dig. But he is trying to say, your senses are lost. You don't understand. We are going uphill. It is strenuous, but it's not true. He's pretending. He's saying, you know what? I don't believe you. The ground's even. No. It's steep. It's steep. Don't you hear the sea? No, I don't. See, so he's faking the senses, trying to trick him. It doesn't seem to be working. Oh, your other senses grow imperfect by your eyes' anguish. So usually you say stuff like your other senses are growing in power to make up. But he's saying the opposite. I mean, it's a very feeble line. So it may be indeed. You know what, though? Your voice is altered. And you speak better in phrase than thou didst. Please notice, poor Tom, slipping out of role. I've tried to point this out to you in terms of Kent with Oswald slipping in and out. Edgar is poor Tom. You notice now he can't do the accent well enough. He can't do the language well enough. Why is that? He's with his father who's actually suffering, and he's putting on this elaborate show, but he's not doing it very well. It's not as convincing. Not as convincing as the flibberty-gibbet nonsense he was speaking last night in the storm scene. And Gloucester, I mean, this is funny. When I say funny, I don't mean hilarious. It can be played for laughs. But there is a comedy, a tragic mixing as what is his name? Knight. Oh, what is his name? Wilson Knight. Wilson W. something Knight. Wilson Knight, you know, the grotesque comedy of King Lear. The mixing of horror and lightness to almost get to the depths of the horror with greater penetration and pain. You're much deceiving. In nothing am I changed, but in my garments. I'm only changed, again, I think this is costume, and, you know, this is an extended metaphor in theater, or a meditation on it, anyway. No, nonsense. I think you're better spoken. The language you're using, the way you speak, you're not poor Tom anymore. And if that's the case, is he starting to recognize his son? Then, and I think it's Frank Kermode, that great critic, with it in his magisterial book, Shakespeare's Language. He talks about this scene and it being, you know, one of the highest in Shakespeare's canon in terms of language and theater combining to make one effect. Here comes Edgar describing where they are. Now remember, they're on flat ground and they're nowhere near a cliff, and whether they're near Dover is neither here nor there. They're nowhere near where he's describing. Here's the place. Stand still, because you're swaying, he imagines. How fearful and dizzy it is to cast one's eyes so low. I mean, again, is he joking? Is he taking... The crows and coughs that wing the midway air show scarce so gross as beetles. Halfway down hangs one that gathers samphire. So firstly, we're so high up, it seems, that the birds look like beetles, like little insects. Then, almost like a Bruegel painting, he paints a samphire gatherer. It's a seaweed. It's hard work, you know. Methinks he seems no bigger than his head. He's so tiny. He's emphasizing size and the distance. But through what? Through imagery. To a blind man, he's trying to make him see. Methinks he seems no bigger than his head. The fishermen that walk upon the beach, they look like mice. And yond tall anchoring bark diminished to her cock, a buoy almost too small for sight. So in the distance, the boat is just a little, it's just, you know, the mast is just like a little teeny boat. The murmuring surge, oh wow, that's good. The murmuring surge that on the unnumbered idle pebble chafes cannot be heard so high. So I think what he's saying is that the sea, mumbling, murmuring, but loudly, chafing on the pebbles on the shore, it can't be heard here because we're too high. So he's justifying the lack of sound. I mean, it's quite inventive. Of course his language has changed. Of course he's better spoken. Are you joking? Look at this. Just compare this speech of Edgar's to any of poor Tom's speech in the storm. I'll look no more, lest my brain turn. Another simile for madness. And the deficit sight toppled down headlong. If madness, maybe dizziness, he's worried. He says, I'm worried I'm going to get dizzy and fall in. Okay, so put me where you are. And then he's going to give him some money and says, okay, go away so I can kill myself. Give me your hand. You are now within a foot of the extreme verge. For all beneath the moon would I not leap upright. So he's emphasizing the danger. Go, my hand. Here's my purse. And it's a jewel, so here's the money. Fairies and gods. I mean, now it's strange to pair fairies with gods now. It really perhaps emphasizes the kind of pre-Christian, but it also maybe the fantastical. Like, does he actually think they're fairies and gods anymore? He's given up all hope. He's just going to kill himself. Maybe this is a complete acceptance. It's all just a bunch of rubbish. Prosper it with thee. Go thou farther off. Bid me farewell, and let me hear thee going. Let me hear you going. Don't try and save me. So what we see is a man on stage, on flat ground, thinking he's going to die. What we see is a man playing a role to this blind man and pretending he's going to leave. So often they'll just, on stage, you'll hear them, Tom going, oh, now fare you well, good sir. Just not moving, but just echoing. You know, there's a gag there. You know, this gag isn't exactly funny. But it might be because we know nothing bad will happen to Gloucester in this moment. With all my heart. Why I do trifle thus with his despair is done to cure it. So he tells the audience, he's playing trifle. He's playing with his despair. Why? To cure it. So the opposite of despair is hope. Is that what he's doing? Isn't this kind of a ridiculous activity that he's trying to do? You know, you could interpret it as torture, as an unnecessary amount of torture. But this isn't tying the bear to the stake and plucking his eyes. This isn't about making him feel worse. He has a point. He's trying to do something. Well, whether it is, you know, what is it? I don't know. If it works, this is what we are in life. If you're despairing, you need a moment, a shock, to leap back into belief. Oh, you mighty gods, this world I do renounce. And I think, you know, this is Orwell's idea of the play, that the play is about renunciation, actually. To reject everything. I give up and reject the world. And in your sight, say patiently, my great affliction off. Isn't this a kind of echo of Lear's justification for the love test? If I could bear it longer and not fall to quarrel with your great opposeless wills, my snuff and loathed part of nature should burn itself out. If I could handle it, if I could just keep going, I would just, you know, I would survive on this planet until I burned out. If Edgar lives, just bless him. I mean, he regrets and he articulates his regret with love. And Edgar hears him, right? Pain. It's horrible. It's brutal. Now, fellow, fare thee well. He says goodbye and he falls forward. Now, this is a very hard scene to pull off, because if you play against the laughs, it's very hard to understand what's going on. If you play too into the laugh, you make it trite It's a tricky, tricky thing to pull off. I'm very much with Wilson Knight in the idea that you have to mingle the humor to get the tragedy. In the grotesque is something more painful and profound. Gone, sir, farewell. And yet I know not how conceit may rob the treasury of life, when life itself yields to the theft. And had he been where he thought, by this had thought been past, alive or dead. So I think what he's saying is, he would have killed himself if I let him do that. He's stealing from himself. He's stealing from himself. He can't do that. He can't allow him to do that. He can't. Life is worth living. Again, why? Why? What? To what end? What is life worth living? Will you scream out at Edgar? Why would you want to do this? So in one way, this could be seen as absolute horrific misery. In another way, particularly in a Christian way, he's saying, okay, you've got to keep going. You've got to keep surviving. He plays a new role, new accent. He doesn't need to change his clothes. That's why I think it's like radio. Alive or dead? Ho! You, sir, friend, hear ye, sir, speak. Thus might he pass indeed, yet he revives. What are you, sir? Oh, I mean, depression, despair. Who has felt those emotions and not thought that, just get away from me, let me die. Oof, this play. Hast thou been on... Look at my accent. Sorry, I'm just doing it to emphasize. It's another voice speaking. But gossamer feathers, sir, so many fathom down, precipitating, thou shivered like an egg. So he fell. It's like he must be very light to have survived that. But thou dost breathe, hast heavy substance. You're real. You don't bleed. Speak. You're safe. 10 masts at each make not the altitude which thou hast perpendicularly fell. Thy life's a miracle. Speak yet again. Ooh, an echo again. 211. Speak again. You're alive. How? You've fallen so far. What? Have I fallen or no? What is it? Yeah, for sure you have. From the dread summit to the chalky bourne. Look up a height and see he's playing it ironically. Doesn't know he's blind. The shrill gorged lark so far cannot be seen or heard, but do look up. No, I can't look up. Alack, I have no eye. Is wretchedness deprived that benefit to end itself by death? 'Twas yet some comfort when misery could beguile the tyrant's rage and frustrate his proud will. I feel like he's really annoyed. He's not dead. How is he not dead? He wants to be dead. He is not into living. Give me your arm. Up. How is it? Feel your legs? You stand? Do well, do well. This is above all strangeness. Upon the crown of the cliff, what thing was that you parted from? It was a poor beggar. No, it wasn't. Not a beggar, but a demon. As I stood here below, methought his eyes were 2 full moons. Now the description, from real to fantastic, mystic. Here again, I think we see art. 1,000 noses, horns whelked and waved like an enrigid sea. It was some fiend. Therefore, thou happy father, think that the clearest gods who made them honors of men's impossibilities have preserved thee. The gods saved you from a fiend who pushed you to suicide. From the real to this mythic fantastic. Is it comic, or is it reinstating faith? Wait a second, I remember now. From now on, I'll hear affliction till it do cry out itself enough, enough, and die. Okay, from now on, I will take the pain, I think is what he's saying. The thing you speak of, I took it for a man, but it offered to the fiend. He led me to this place. I think the night before, remember, he was talking about demons in the storm scene. He was talking about, and maybe retrospectively, Gloucester's suggesting that he was in fact a demon. He justifies it to himself. He believes Edgar's story, and now he says, okay, I will believe. I, from this point onward, will continue to try. And we've got this elaborate Baroque drama wherein Edgar, as poor Tom and as a new character, play all these tricks to reinstate this character's faith in the world. And it is comic, and it is tragic, and it is that mixture that gets to the depths of the tragedy here. And we're not done yet, because it's going to still get worse.